Yeah. You can't show your own thing. I would like to officially call our first meeting of the current academic year to order. First on the agenda, I would like to welcome the new board members. We have new faces around the table. So first we have Carly Fiorina and Nicole Palaia Woods is here with us today. Kate Cole James and Steve Smith were both unable to attend. Steve did join us for the committee meetings and orientation yesterday, but had conflicts today. So we will look forward to all four of you continuing with us on the board. Welcome. I'd also like to, we did introduce, but I'd like to welcome officially Abby Pinella, who is our current student representative to the board. So welcome, Abby. And I'd also like to welcome, I believe Nate Hazen is in the room. So Nate, if you raise your hand so people can see you. He is our current SGA president. So welcome. Our next agenda item is the consent order. The consent order consists of the minutes from the last three meetings, which include the April meeting, our retreat minutes, and the executive committee. Does anyone want to remove an item from the consent agenda? Right? May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. And
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the committee reports, and we're going to do this alphabetically. It's not, I may shake it up in the future, but first up is academic.
Oh,
excellence.
wow, that comes first. A. Okay, great.
AC, because we have a couple.
Oh, all right. Oh, yes, AC. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We started out our meeting with an update from Provost Heather Coltman. We started with a moment of silence, remembering 4 members of the Academic Affairs Division who recently passed away. Then the provost provided some context to establish how JMU and academic affairs arrived at where we are today, and then spoke about where we're going as we move forward toward our vision to mature and thrive as an R2 institution. She emphasized the professional educational components that complement JMU's traditional liberal arts offerings in preparing students for the workforce. And she praised the excellent work of faculty in preparing our students for a fast-paced and vibrant world. Then we had a college spotlight, which is something that we hope going forward we'll have at each of our academic excellence meetings. And our kickoff was done by Dean Bob Colbert, who gave us an update on the College of Integrated Science and Engineering, SISE. The college is the fastest growing program at JMU. It had a 37%, which is almost double the growth of the next college, the next highest growth college. He gave us a list of the undergraduate and graduate degrees that are offered in SISE, which was very helpful to understand what's housed in that program. They feature majors that combine theory with application, and faculty focus on connecting students with challenging real-world problems, which brought us to our presentation of senior Megan Calfeld, who is an engineering major, and she demonstrated how she's been working on solving a real-world problem as part of her honors thesis project, using passive haptic learning to help parents of children how to write in Braille. We also heard from Amber Oliver, a senior computer science major, who shared some details about her work-based learning experience, which we're all trying to change our terminology from internships to work-based learning experience. So I think everybody who's here at JMU knows that's a little bit of a change and a little bit of a mouthful. But Amber gave us a great overview of an experience that she had with Fannie Mae, which resulted in a full-time job offer, which gave a huge round of applause for many of us around the room, especially those of us who are parents and know how wonderful that is. They also had a faculty member with them And we got to hear about the impact of undergraduate research, which is of course a very large conversation that we have around this table, and the value of the teacher scholar model, which we're incredibly proud of at JMU. After that, we had a work-based learning experience. I'm getting better at saying that panel, and that was Steve Whitmire, the Associate Dean of the College of Science and Mathematics and the co-chair of JMU's Work-Based Learning Experience Task Force. He moderated a panel discussion with 2 current undergraduates and 1 recent graduate, helped us learn about their work-based learning experiences. We heard from Maya, Jack, and Brian. Each of them completed work experiences in different places. One was at Merck, one was at Warren Memorial Hospital doing dietetics, and one was a fellow in the governor's office. They shared their highlights and their experiences with us, including how they obtained those opportunities, some of the highlights of what they had learned, and what most surprised them about their workplace experience. And I think for us, it was really one of those moments that was helpful to understand that statistic that we're also proud of, that we are #1 in the state for getting a job. And these presentations were extremely helpful. I think I'm speaking now for myself, for the board members to hear the why behind that statistic. Then we heard from our faculty senate speaker, Kathy Walter, who shared an update of motions recently considered and approved by the members of the faculty senate. She highlighted a variety of activities and achievements in health professions and accounting, and she included information on faculty scholarly work, student-led research, presentations, and community engagement, and the collaboration between the School of Accounting and faculty in the Department of Foreign Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, as they supported a program called the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, which is a great example of us being an anchor institution in the community. I think Kathy was right, it was 502 returns were completed. 503. So yeah, really an incredible service to the community. And then we ended our meeting, I think the way most of the meetings ended, and that was a discussion about topics of interest for future meetings. The committee and Provost Boltman determined some topics of interest might be interdisciplinary undergraduate research and scholarly research by faculty. Madam Rector, I move the report of the Academic Excellence Committee be accepted.
Thank you, Laura Major. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? So moved. Thank you. Next up, advancement and engagement, Michael Stoltzfus.
Thank you, Madam Rector. The Advancement Committee heard the following reports at the meeting on September 14th, 2023. First was earned media on social presence. Mary Hope Voss and Trey Sechrist reported, pretty amazing results, by the way, reported that earned media grew in several areas, specifically in national coverage. First was the university's social media presence has been ranked 4th by Rival IQ among all D1 schools, which is remarkable. And then the next is that JMU's Instagram remains #1 in the nation. So congratulations to the team. Next is digital advertising impact. Andy Perrine, Chris Meyer, and his team, Chris Meyer and Heather Davis, shared that the enrollment marketing recaps for digital marketing and advertising in 2023. The detail on ad engagement and impact, and examples of very creative ads that were created and visual styles. Next, we had a very robust discussion with regards to a market study. We had Ben Kennedy from Kennedy and Company provided an overview of market demand for existing JMU graduate and certificate programs. Finally, we were given the opportunity to discuss topics of interest that would be for the upcoming meetings for the year. We then adjourned at 9 p.m. And Madam Rector, I move that the report of the Advancement Committee be accepted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved. Next, athletics. Lynch.
Yes, we had a great meeting. The Athletics Committee heard the following reports at the meeting yesterday, on Thursday, September 14th. We started with a sports update from Director Bourne. Last year was a tremendous year for JMU athletics, 65.5 winning percentage across all sports. 3 conference regular season titles, 6 NCAA appearances, a 3.184 department GPA with 91 president's list and 195 dean list student athletes. 6,352 department hours of community service, 7 All-Americans, 8 conference players of the year, and 3 conference coaches of the year. I think we all can agree that's just amazing for last year. And it's gotten better starting this year. For the current academic year, JMU teams have compiled an 18-8-5 cumulative record for a .661 winning percentage. Duke's men's teams have not lost yet. They're 6-0-2. Football sits at 2-0 after defeating Virginia 36-35 in week 2 in the first matchup between the state's programs in 40 years. And I think for everyone that read about it or was lucky enough to be there, was an emotional day for JMU. And I think both schools handled it amazingly. And I think everyone should be proud of that. Men's soccer.
Moment of silence.
What?
We should have a moment of silence for that victory.
Well, I think for both things. Men's soccer is off to a 4-0-2 start. Women's soccer sits at 3-2-3. Volleyball is 7-2, and field hockey has started this season at 2-4. Head field hockey coach Christy Morgan was recently inducted into the National Field Hockey Coaches Association Hall of Fame. JMU inducted its 35th Hall of Fame class on September 1st with a group featuring women's soccer forward Kim R.G. Estes, lacrosse attacker Casey Ancaro, longtime integrated health and sports performance administrator Tom Custer, baseball infielder pitcher Brent Matheny, football quarterback Justin Rascotti, and archer Jacob Wuki. JMU faculty athletics representative Roger Swarnskin was honored as a nominee for the Sunbelt FAR of the Year award. I think the sports update was amazing. The next report was the Sunbelt Conference Assembly of Provost meeting. An academic update was provided by Provost Coltman from the Sunbelt Conference Assembly of Provost meeting held in San Marcos, Texas. The next report was the 2022-2023 Strategic Plan Accountability Measures Report. The committee received the report on athletics strategic plan accountability measures for 2022-2023. JMU athletics continues to meet and exceed the majority of the measures outlined in the university's strategic plan. We next had a compliance update. The NCAA Transformation Committee has made the following recommendations. Provide a holistic student athlete model, which includes scholarship protections and medical care requirements, among other things. JMU is already implementing a majority of these items. Involve the student athlete voice in decision-making, including representation at coaches meetings and on institutional committees. There is also a requirement at the conference level. Mandated areas of education now covered with student athletes. New rules to highlight accountability for measures of Division I in regards to medical care and compliance. Future changes and recommendations could address the following categories: FBS membership requirements, championship access and travel, and amateurism. Student athlete focus was our next report. We have the JMU Dukes Lead program continues to help out our student athletes for life after college, focusing on areas of career readiness, civic and community engagement, human development, and leadership development. The Student Athlete Advisory Committee and President Dimitri Turner have identified campus, community involvement, peer support and education, and student athlete voice driving experiences as their priorities for this academic year If you haven't met Dimitri Turner, he's on the soccer team, just an amazing young man. We're lucky to have him as the president this year. Several JMU student athletes have participated in experimental learning opportunities, including the NCAA Student Athlete Leadership Forum and the Michael and Cecilia Battle Summer Leadership Scholarship Program. Preseason planning for the SAC includes identifying goals and initiatives, committee restructuring and participating in the Sunbelt Summer Student Athlete Summit and Sunbelt Fall Meeting. Our last report was on fundraising, which again, just like the sports update and everything else, is record-breaking and great news. For the physical 23 was a record-breaking year for the Duke Club. New donor total of 5,633, up almost 1,000 donors over the prior physical year in 2022. New annual fundraising record of $4,669,000. New overall fundraising record of $6.2 million, and that's over $1 million from the prior year. Current year-to-date donor number is 1,937, up 450 donors from the same period the year before. The physical 24 annual fund is currently at 402,000 as of September 8, 2023. Sports specific giving is expected to increase as we prepare for our Diggin' Dukes campaign on November 28th, which will highlight our restricted giving funds. Fiscal year 28 goals include 4.8 million for the annual fund and reaching 6,000 donors. Then we closed the meeting with Mr. Bourne saying future agenda items were discussed for an upcoming meeting, and then the meeting adjourned at 4:14 p.m. Madam Rector, I move that this report and the actions taken by the Athletics Committee be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion about this report? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next up, audit risk and compliance. Chris Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Rector. The Audit Risk and Compliance Committee heard the following reports at the meeting on September 14, 2023. Marcella Mullinax, JMU's Environmental Health Coordinator, provided an overview of the work of the risk management team. The team is responsible for the safety training, fire safety and inspection, accident investigation, lab safety, and inspection and insurance claims management. Risk management's work with the Office of Research Integrity works with them by supporting lab safety, biosafety, and radiation safety. Ms. Mullinax discussed challenges associated with hazardous waste, Title V, lasers, workers' comp, as well as the university's insurance for cybersecurity, malpractice, and fine arts and antiquities. It was news to me how many lasers the university has, but it was heartening to know that we're taking good care of them. So Yelena Uderkirk, Assistant Director, discussed the annual report for audit and management services. The committee approved the internal audit budget for 2023-24 and the revised 2023-24 internal audit plan. And just kudos to the amazing work that the committee continues to do on the audit. We're moving along in the materials, and we were sad to miss Becky Holmes, but our team really did a great job in the audit committee meeting yesterday. We went into closed session to review and discuss internal audit reports issued since the last meeting, and the meeting adjourned at 3:45 p.m. Madam Rector, I move the report of the audit committee be accepted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion about this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved. Next, Mr. Rothenberger, Finance and Business Development.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Good morning. The Finance and Physical Development Committee heard the following reports at the meeting on September 14th, 2023. Mark Angel did a 2022-2023 fiscal year report financial review, and the university exceeded the university's budget expectations for that year. We also discussed the 2022-2023 receivables write-offs. The university annually writes off accounts that have been deemed uncollectible. Those write-offs were well within the board's established guidelines. Next up, Tawana Moore and Diane Stamp did a 2023-2024 budget update. The adopted budget included $4.7 million for affordable access funds, $2.9 million for financial aid, $660,000 for nursing workforce salaries, and a 2% base salary increase for full-time state employees, including adjunct faculty and graduate teaching assistants, effective December 10th, 2023. It is noteworthy that the final budget was extremely close to the budgetary assumptions made by the JMU Budget Management Office. The university netted $232,000 more in undesignated operational dollars than budgeted. Next up, Tawana and Diane went through the 2024 and 2026 through 2026 budget requests. The university's proposed 24 to 26 budget requests were presented and included $6.8 million to support veterans through the Virginia Military Survivors and Dependents Education Program, increased support for Pell eligible students, funding for facilities operations and workforce recruitment, as well as $6.2 million for academic and student success programs in nursing, education, internships, and mental health. Tawana then went through a 6-year plan update. The 6-year plan, which is required by the Commonwealth, covering the 24, 26, and 28 biennia, was presented. The plan is a pro forma exercise with specific guidelines for completion. A brief overview was completed for the committee. A more extensive review of the plan is on the full board agenda for later this morning. Next, Rick Larson went through the workforce planning and development report. JMU is required to complete the Virginia Department of Human Resource Management Workforce Planning and Development report annually. That's a long report description. The report was summarized and included the current economy's impact on hiring, plan to minimize employee turnover. Next up was Tawana, who discussed the university efficiency review. She reported that an efficiency review will be completed for the entire university. The selection committee, comprised of divisional representation and a member of the faculty senate, will select an outside consultant to complete the review. And lastly, Tawana asked the committee for future topics for discussions. And future topics for discussions included a suggestion for efficiency review report as they become available, and as well as succession planning. The meeting adjourned at 2:30 sharp. Madam Rector, I move the report of the Finance and Physical Development Committee be accepted, please.
Thank you, Ms. Rothenberger. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about this report? Well, I'd like to say personally that, we are incredibly lucky to have Tawana and her team managing our budgets. They did an incredible job making the assumptions that were almost spot on, so that we didn't have to make some significant revisions to our budget once the state budget was approved. So congratulations, we're very lucky to have you.
Absolutely.
Okay, all those in favor? Are any opposed? So moved. Thank you. Mr. White, our fashion plate prototype. Once committee, please.
So the governance committee had a splendid meeting yesterday. We discussed the following items. First, the committee reviewed several revisions to the board manual, which we will present specific recommendations at the full board meeting in November. The committee also reviewed feedback received from board members about last April's retreat. And we began a robust and earnest discussion on preparation for the 2024 retreat. The conversation included developing a very clear description of the value proposition of JMU and effectively articulating the return on investment for all of the various stakeholders, while also receiving an appropriate update on trends in higher education. The committee will continue to think through and brainstorm on the structure for the upcoming retreat. And any suggestions from other committees or board members are very welcome. We also invited all of the committee members to consider topics that they would like the committee to consider. And Governance Committee looks forward to its work in the upcoming year. Madam Rector, I move the report of the Governance Committee be accepted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion about this report? All those in favor? Any opposition? So moved. And our final report, Terry Edwards for Student Affairs.
Great. The student affairs for the following reports at the meeting on September 14th, 2023. The student affair update, I don't know if you know that our theme, I think I've got this right, is every student thrives. And as I go through this, I want you to imagine that you're a parent of one of these students, because it was really a really good meeting. Dr. Tim Miller welcomed the committee. He shared the successful move in. We did have a few of our students in triples, and I was reminded I was in a triple and I survived it. When I was first, with no air conditioning, I might add. The opening week of the home for the JMU Valor, and the largest number of students who joined the fraternity and sorority life, as well as 350 student organizations. So if you want to be connected, there's a place to go. He also shared that we have 1,300 students that are associated with the military and 150 that are veterans. And that was pretty impressive to me, and a surprise, actually. And then he also shared about the plan for the student affairs division's strategic plan. So there's 5 areas: learning, belonging, health and well-being, partnerships, and being the best place to work. And we all know if we have the best place to work, then our students will be happy, right? Because we have employees that are happy there as well. Then each of our committee members have agreed to pair with Tim, Dr. Miller, for each one of these components. So we'll have a committee member that'll focus on each one. The Student Government Association report, we welcome Nate Hazen, he's here today, gave a really good report on all the opportunities that he is looking for civic engagement and campus unity. Really focused on that belonging section as what he's focused on. Teamwork and achieving the dreams and making the campus a great place, better than it already is, he said, one day at a time. So I thought that was very well done. Abby Canella, our new student representative to the Board of Visitors, gave a very nice report on how she's working to serve the JMU community by creating and hosting the President's Council, a variety of student organizations. She was one of the 132 frogs, the first year guides, is that the right word?
Yes.
Right? First year guides that welcome students to the campus when they come in the summer. And that's what she did this summer. So it was great having her here all summer. Then we moved on to, and both of them agreed to, it would come up with goals for this year that would fit into the major 5 areas that Dr. Miller is focusing on. So we really appreciate that. The Dean of the Students Spotlight was on Dean Holly Hall. I don't know if she's here this morning. I don't see her. She had herself and some of her leadership team present to us about the work that they're doing. They have a referral program called Madison Cares. It's designed to connect students with individualized non-clinical case management, and a thoughtful program. They even will do planners, which I'm a big planner fan. And I wish I could send my kids back here so they could do that. But it was a great way that they pull together planners for students and help them organize their time. We heard from a program about rebound and learning, success strategies, and just really how we support our students. We also talked about referrals. Their referrals to this care center has tripled since 2019. And I don't think that that's unhealthy. I think it's really healthy. I think a lot of people needed support and didn't get it. And I think through the past 3 years, we've learned to ask for help early, and that's great. The top 3 areas were academic support, mental health, and then social emotional support. Both Abby and Nate committed to really give their all next year. So it was really very nice. We then went to a student panel. We had 4 students that shared their experiences of working in the JMU Cares program. And it was really interesting because they shared what they were doing for others, but also how it was changing their lives. And all 4 were incredibly mature. The impact that they had on students. So I was struck by how affirming Dr. Hall was of them, and you could just see that there was a very close connection. Madam Rector, I move that the report of the Student Affairs Committee be accepted. Great meeting.
Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about this report? Right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? I do just want to take a moment while the president moves to the front of the room to thank the 7 board members who've agreed to be committee chairs this year. It is an extra time and I want to just say how much I appreciate your leadership and agreeing to take these roles. Thank you. With that, I will turn the agenda over to the president for the president's report.
Thank you, Madam Rector, and good morning, everybody. It's great to have you all here, and for the board members, especially the new board members, I have a fair number of things to cover, given that it's the first meeting of a new academic year. So if there's something where you have a particular question during the presentation, please feel free to interrupt with questions, and I'll also leave time at the end for questions. But I hope what you'll see is this is a university on the move. A lot of exciting things are happening at JMU. So starting with an enrollment update, it's that time of year we're getting close to what we call the census date, where we look at the final tally of who actually showed up and has stayed at JMU. But to start, you see that we had a record number of applications at the undergraduate level, over 37,000 this year. And look at these increases in the last 2 years, 17% over last year, 68% over a couple of years ago. Of course, that's when we went to the Common App, when you expect to see something of a jump, but to see the increase even over last year was very exciting, especially a 46% increase in those out-of-state applications. And this is at a time, of course, when many colleges and universities are struggling with enrollment and applications. So we are very fortunate with these trends at JMU. And in particular, we are focused on trying to open our doors more widely to increase access for lower income and first generation students. You all know, for example, about the Reddick Center for First Generation Students that opened this past year. Now, looking at the numbers and where they stand as of today, the first year class, as you see, is at 4947. Well above that goal of 4650. The admissions office, I don't know how they do it. It's an amazing job to try to predict the yield and make sure we don't have too many of those triples that you heard referenced. But they did a great job this year, and particularly when you look at the demographics of the class 2, 24% from historically underrepresented minority groups, 16% are first generation students, and just this class alone has 39 states and 46 countries, along with 723 transfer students. Now, it's not enough just to get students accepted, right? We want them to come to JMU, and a big part of that has to do with financial aid. So JMU has joined a national movement called the Commitment to Cost Transparency. And I don't know, is Brad here today by any chance?
Yeah.
Brad Barnett, I want to give a lot of credit to our director of financial aid, who was literally the chair of the national organization that helped to forward this over the last year. And basically what it is to make sure that when students get their financial aid offers, that it's really clear what's going to be a loan, what's going to be a grant, to be very clear about all of the costs up front. And so we are already complying and ahead of the game in terms of the principles, but this has now become a significant national movement, and we're proud to have a leadership role in it. Now, speaking of opening doors and broadening access, we're trying to do this in a variety of ways. And here's just one really interesting example. And let's see, Fletcher is here somewhere. There he is. Fletcher Linder has been leading in this particular effort called the Earned Admissions Pathway. So the idea is thinking about sort of what we would call non-traditional learners, which actually make up a significant portion of Americans in higher education today. This is a program that helps people who may not be sure about college, they may not be able to relocate to Harrisonburg, but they can take online courses as non-degree seeking, non-residential students to get an idea, is college right for them? And if they successfully complete 24 credits, as you see with a cumulative GPA of at least a 3.0, it would allow them to seamlessly transition to degree seeking status. So this is going to help open our doors to more students that might not ordinarily just be able to come and enroll as traditional first-year students. So thank you, Fletcher, for your leadership on that front. Another example of opening our doors and broadening access, and this I have to say was one of the highlights of the summer for me personally, and I know for some of our staff as well. For the last couple of years, we have partnered with the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired to host visually impaired students on campus. Most of these were high school students that, had thought, gosh, is there any chance that I could go to college? And what would that feel like? And so they were here for basically a week on campus, living in the residence halls. We learned so much from them about what are the barriers that we need to overcome, but also what are the tremendous opportunities. And a couple of students who've been a part of this program are already at JMU. The department told us, they've worked with some other colleges, they said JMU is the best partner they have had. Our staff, they couldn't say enough good things about the tremendous work. So Malika, Art Dean, and others, I want to thank all of you for really opening our doors to this group, and we learned so much from this experience. Now, you want to open the doors, right? You want to get the students here, but then we have to help them succeed and make sure that they stay on track to graduate. And I hope you'll sort of see as we go through this report that sort of continuation of the student experience. So one of the new things that we are embarking upon, and this was the result in part of our SACS COC reaccreditation, that's the university-wide reaccreditation that you go through every 10 years. And for the new board members, we just went through this process this past year, and we had for the second consecutive time 0 recommendations, which is the best you can possibly do. Only about 2% or less of colleges in our region achieved that. So that was very exciting. But part of what they look for, our accreditor, is to have what they call a quality enhancement plan. Don't just rest on your laurels, always be thinking about what you can do better. So this early student success system is our so-called QEP going forward for the next few years. And the idea is, now that we have all this data at the university, to try to use it in new and creative and helpful ways to support our students. So we're going to be using this, what we call the early student success system, to identify where students are struggling, particularly early on when they make that transition to college and to JMU, and to see if there are any equity gaps, which might be based on race or gender or socioeconomic status. We know there are some majors and academic courses that can create particular barriers. So the idea is that you can identify where there are those challenges and then develop strategies quickly to address those gaps and to help those particular students. And so we'll be deploying a variety of interventions, including using technology for these micro surveys and text messages to students to check up on them, to make sure that they know about the resources available to them for support. And you heard Terry mention how important that is for student success. Now, okay, we've gotten the students in the door. Hopefully we're retaining them. Let's make sure that they graduate and enter the workforce and are ready for the workforce, right? So you've heard already, Laura mentioned that mouthful of work-based learning. We have had a task force this past year that has studied these different types of experiences that we currently have for students, with the goal for all students to have some sort of experience like that before they graduate. We hear from employers that that's what they want, right? They want students that have some understanding of how to translate the wonderful subject matter content they've learned in the classroom outside the classroom in the world of work. This is a major topic of conversation with the Commonwealth, you probably know, and so we are really trying to provide some support and leadership within the Commonwealth for this conversation. Very specifically, a couple of areas that we are doing a lot of work on that you've heard us talk about before, providing more teachers, because there is a real shortage now. So the College of Education has been doing a lot of creative things there. And of course, more nurses. I don't need to tell someone like Terry, who comes from the healthcare system, how important it is to get those frontline healthcare workers. So those are two of the specific areas on which we're focused in terms of workforce readiness and having conversations with the Commonwealth about. We have a new information technology degree, and Bob Holborn here this morning. There he is. So Bob, there were what, 150 majors already. This is a brand new degree. So clearly one where there's going to be a lot of demand, and again, meeting workforce needs of the future. We're going to be talking more about career outcomes later in the meeting, a special presentation, so I won't steal their thunder. But again, I hope you can help connect the dots here from outreach to admissions to outcomes and careers, because it gets to that strong story on the return on investment that is so important for us to be able to tell to our many constituencies. Okay, Don? Now, one of the big things that occurred in the last couple of years, and again, our new board members have started to hear about this, but becoming a national R2 research university. What does that mean? Well, we've of course met the metrics in terms of the number of doctorates that we award and research funding, but just a couple of highlights of the momentum on this front. You see that last year we won over 34 million in external research funding, thanks to our tremendous faculty. Again, representing a 7.5% increase over the previous year and a 92% increase just compared to 2019, just a few years ago. And this year we celebrated the largest single year grant in our entire history. And often people think about the sciences, and of course we are doing great work there, but look at number one here is actually an early childhood education, Laura. So really proud of that, and thank you for all your help on that front. Okay, Tom. Also thinking about our distinctive identity now as an R2 institution. We're not just trying to be like everybody else, right? We are trying to focus on what makes JMU distinctive. What is our unique niche in American higher education? So for example, you'll see with our research funding, 2/3 of that research funding supported public service and outreach activities. You know, we talk about being the national model of the engaged university, and here it is. Look at these areas. There are things like enhancing educational opportunities, health and well-being, transportation, infrastructure, and environmental sustainability. So the research that is being done here is having an immediate and direct impact on the world and on the community around us. And we're very proud of the great work. Is Anthony here? There he is. Thank you, Anthony, for your leadership on that front. One example, I know a lot of the board members that have been with us for a while are very familiar with the X Labs, but especially for those of you that are new, this is one of the great models that we really think helps to make us unique. And it's broader than just the X Labs, by the way. The whole College of Integrated Science and Engineering is interdisciplinary and problem solving in this way. But this model where we have people from outside the university that work with us to develop courses, and again, these are very hands-on learning experiences where problems come to us that are real world problems they're trying to solve in government or industry. The students work on teams to try to solve those problems together. It's a great learning model. And so we're very excited to continue to try to anticipate the needs of the future. And this is another way of giving students very practical experience before they graduate. Speaking of looking ahead, I don't need to tell anybody what an important issue artificial intelligence is right now in our world, in our country, and obviously in higher education. And so we knew coming into this year that this is something that we really had to try to get a grip on as we go forward. So we are forming a new task force as we speak on artificial intelligence that will include faculty, staff, students, and we are looking for some alumni or other supporters of the university who have particular expertise on artificial intelligence, especially in terms of the impact on higher education. Now, we know, of course, there are a lot of concerns about ChatGPT, right? Does that help people, cheat or not learn subject matter content, but it also creates incredible opportunities for learning and teaching, right? So we're trying to look at both sides of the equation. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities? And we'll have working groups in a variety of different areas. People don't often think about beyond the classroom, but in admissions, artificial intelligence can be helpful in student services and support. So there are a variety of areas that we will be studying with different working groups as we go forward. So if you haven't already, for anybody in the room or your friends and colleagues, if you haven't responded, David Kirkpatrick, would you raise your hand in the back? David, our interim chief of staff is helping to organize the working group. So please let him know if you're interested in this work. Another example of what it means to be an R2 as we move forward is we have different types of new centers that are arising at the university doing interesting and cutting edge work. And this one I'm particularly proud of because you all know that youth justice is such an important issue in our society. And this is, we understand, sort of the first center of its kind here that we are offering at JMU. It will, as you see, increase positive youth opportunities, strengthen accountability and sort of the, the youth justice system, and enhance community safety. So again, research and work that's going to have a direct impact on the world. And what we're excited about in particular, you see, this was a great example of a partnership with someone external to the university, our alum John Toole, working with justice studies and social work, those departments at JMU. John is as you see, the executive director of the Robert F. Kennedy National Resource Center for Juvenile Justice. So this is something that's been years in the making. We're very excited to get this off the ground and a great example of an interdisciplinary collaboration. Now, turning to a new academic partnership when we're thinking about the world of work and what we're preparing our students for. For a number of years, I have served on the board representing JMU of the Northern Virginia Technology Council. But this past summer, their leadership came to us and said, we really want to explore upping our level of involvement with James Madison University. They know that we have a lot of alumni, a lot of students that come from Northern Virginia and that want to work at these high-tech companies. You see that NVTC represents nearly 500 organizations. And of course, they work on technology innovation and promote that world-class workforce development. So we are what they are referring to as their newest academic partner. So that is a higher level of membership and participation. And it's going to help us in all sorts of ways. You can see that it's going to provide faculty and staff and students access to additional events. We hope to internships and other work-based learning opportunities for our research to be showcased in various ways and for us to collaborate with the high-tech industries in Northern Virginia. So a great example of, again, those external partnerships that are helping us thrive as an R2 institution. And as we talk about becoming a national research university, and we talk also about JMU's distinctive niche in the American higher education marketplace, it's really important that we don't forget about the quality of our undergraduate education and experience. And some of you have mentioned that let's always make sure that we are focused on the faculty-student interaction and the incredible quality of undergraduate education. So that's what this next partnership is all about, called Project Paradigm. This is a group of institutions around the country that are really the leaders in high quality, high impact practices in undergraduate education. And they reached out to us and said, we want JMU to be part of this multi-year initiative to really think about systematic transformation of undergraduate education. How do we make sure that students are having those high impact experiences? And so you see they're going to be working on curricular design, experiential learning, and holistic student development. That should look familiar, right? These are areas where JMU has some real signature strengths, but this will allow us, to share what we're doing and also to learn from emerging best practices from the very best institutions around the country. So really excited to be a part of Project Paradigm. And as an R2 National Research University, of course, we have global reach as well as national reach. And just a couple of examples, as we think about what that looks like in practice. So this past summer, as your president, I was invited to a couple of different international gatherings that were focused on challenges and opportunities facing higher education around the world. First, in Germany, the Global University Leaders Council. I was privileged to be a part of that, and it was so interesting to hear colleagues from around the world looking to the United States saying, we are very concerned about academic freedom, the educational mission, civic engagement, and support for democracy. So a really important set of conversations that we were a part of. And then just last month in Japan, the International Network of Universities met. For those of you that don't know INU, JMU is the only American university in this group. That we have lots of international partnerships, but this particular collaboration really focuses on opportunities for faculty and staff and students with other universities around the world. And actually, while I was there, every year in Hiroshima, one of the things that they do is that they have a student conference. And so one of our faculty members was there with several of our students working with other students from universities around the world on present day real world problems. It was an incredible experience to see those students at work. So an example of, again, how we're trying to broaden our reach into the world, and also we hope to continue to bring the world to JMU. I've already mentioned one of my favorite topics. You know that I probably can't go a meeting without at least saying something about civic engagement and free expression. We are named for the father of the Constitution, right? And that means something. And I want to thank David again, David Kirkpatrick, who's doing double duty also as the head of our Madison Center for Civic Engagement. A lot going on this front, a very important topic in American higher education, and we are really trying to rise to the challenge. So first, we had an orientation session that David and other colleagues led, including the Bipartisan Policy Center had a representative here to help lead that for all of our first year students. They all got those wonderful purple constitutions as part of it. And it was an interactive session to get students to think about the importance of free expression in higher education. I think many of you saw that we joined a group called the Campus Call for Free Expression. These are leading universities from around the country like Cornell and Stanford and Wesleyan that have come together to talk about what we can do to try to provide leadership for higher education on this front. And so we had a national AP article, for example, talking about how important this work is. Last week, Kay Coles-James, one of our newest board members, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but she gave a wonderful presentation on the importance of working across the aisle, working across differences to solve problems. Exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to get our students to learn and to develop those skills to do. You heard mentioned earlier the Governor's Fellows Program. We're very excited that we now have an endowment, thanks to David and his colleagues, so that is permanently endowed. So we hope every year we have a student that has that opportunity to work directly in the governor's office, as Maya Wilcox did this past summer. Constitution Day, let's see, Andy Perrine, where are you? You have something just to.
That's right, Coach, I don't want to miss it. Yesterday's breeze, today's Daily News Record, Carly Fiorina at Wilson Hall. Last time she spoke, she packed the place. It's our #1 most watched video that is not athletics.
Wow, Carly, you're up there with football and basketball. Really impressive. So any sneak preview you want to give us, Carly, or?
No.
So you have to come to hear it. But thank, in all seriousness, Carly, thank you for doing that. That's really meaningful, and I know it means a lot to the students and faculty. And these events are free and open to the public, so I encourage everybody to come. David, let me make sure I don't get it wrong. 7 p.m. Wilson Hall Auditorium on the 20th. Great. So thank you again, Carly. And just because we're not busy enough next week, we'll also be hosting Senator Tim Kaine 2 days later to kick off the Common Good in the Commonwealth series, again, under the leadership of the Madison Center. So a lot going on. And that event, David, do we know the time yet?
2:00 p.m. here in the Festival Ballroom.
All right, 2:00 p.m., September 22nd, Festival Ballroom, Senator Tim Kaine. Thank you, David. Okay, last few things quickly. There's always construction going on at JMU. You all know that. And of course, this year is no exception. Carrier Library doesn't quite look like itself right at the moment, as you know, but for a good reason, right? It's going to take us 2.5 years, but when it's done, it is going to be a state-of-the-art facility with a lot of great technology and a real hub for the campus. So very excited about that project. And a couple of other ones. I used to say the old convo, I guess now we'll call it the new convo, and I hope actually we'll have a chance for the board to see this the next time we meet. Inside, of course, it's been renovated for volleyball, indoor track and field, and much more for athletics. It looks like a brand new building. I was at volleyball this past weekend and we had a wonderful turnout. I encourage everybody to come out and support the team. It is amazing to see the facelift that the convo has gotten to have new life now that we have the Atlantic Union Bank Center. And the Village project. How many of us have either lived or are living in the Village? Raise your hands. So quite a few of you. So you know, you've heard reference to air conditioning, right? Accessibility, we want elevators and things. So we do have that project finally starting. It will of course have to be done gradually because you can't take down all those buildings at once with all those beds. Eikenberry Hall was the first one that came down and is now being rebuilt bigger and better than ever. And so far so good, right, Tawana, in terms of that project, and we're really excited. It will look different than the other buildings, so be patient with us when you see the difference between the new and the old, because of course, over time, you will have a lot of all of them will be those state-of-the-art buildings, but it will take a number of years to complete that project. You've heard reference to the state budget. John Rothenberger summarized this already. Of course, the General Assembly passed it. The governor signed it yesterday. And some important highlights for us, more money for financial aid. We've been talking about that for years, right, Donna, and in Richmond, and very excited to see that. You heard about the 2% increase for faculty and staff, and we know that our workforce is our most important strategic resource at JMU. So certainly very excited about that, on top of the 5% that had already been approved earlier. And another key piece in here was funding for nursing faculty. One of our big challenges in nursing is getting and retaining qualified faculty, because obviously the salaries are going up and it's harder to get those people. So it was a great recognition of the importance of that program. We are already, though, hard at work scheduling meetings this fall to prepare for the next General Assembly. We've got meetings set up coming up in Richmond and around the Commonwealth. So thanks. Where's Caitlin? Caitlin, would you raise your hand? Thank you for your leadership on that front. Caitlin is keeping us busy on that front. And just in case we didn't have enough going on next week, we are also hosting the SHEV, the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia Council, here for 2 days, and that will include the Secretary of Education and other leaders from Richmond. So we're bringing Richmond to JMU, and we're spending time on the road with General Assembly members and others in the executive branch to prepare for the next budget cycle. So thank you, Caitlin, for your leadership on that front. And turning to advancement, before we conclude here, Nick Langridge and his team have done, of course, incredible work. Just a couple of highlights I wanted to mention, and again, especially for those who are new. The Madison Trust is sort of a Shark Tank experience that we started. It's been a full decade now, right, Nick? That has raised now over $1 million for 87 different projects. These are innovative ideas from faculty, staff, students that really represent that vision of engagement in Athens, where it just needs a little bit of seed funding to make something happen. And we bring alumni and others who are interested in investing in some of these innovative ideas to the Shark Tank, although I like to think of dolphins because they're pretty friendly when they do it. But an amazing milestone to see over $1 million now raised on that front. And the Women for Madison group, again, for those of you that are new, this has been a tremendous program to emphasize the importance of women and their leadership in philanthropy, which for too long has been overlooked in the United States. Women for Madison recently started this group called the Amethyst Circle, and you can see we've had 77 founders and 123 members that have raised almost $1.4 million for scholarships. And what's significant here is these are immediate scholarships. There are 27 students already that are benefiting from these scholarships. So thank you, Women for Madison. I don't know if Candy is here, but Nick, thank you to you and your whole team. All right, Donna. Now, That doesn't quite conclude my report. I do have a bittersweet announcement to make at this time, and it deals with our athletic director, Jeff Bourne. Jeff has shared with us that he will be retiring at the end of this academic year after 25 years leading the Dukes. So that is pretty extraordinary. I'll bring him up in a moment. Jeff, I think you all know, you've seen the reports, he's overseen the rise of our athletic program into a national force, not just in one or two sports, but really across the board, leading us, of course, into the Sun Belt Conference at the FBS level. Under his watch, we've won 3 national championships, 77 conference championships, think about that for a moment, 15 academic All-Americans, which I'm really excited about. Of course, many new and renovated facilities have been built or renovated under his leadership, like the Atlantic Union Bank Center, the Convocation Centers you just saw, some incredible memorable moments like ESPN Game Day, not once, but twice, the Women's College World Series, who could ever forget that, and beating UVA last weekend was pretty good, right? But I'm also really proud of what we've done with our student athletes in terms of academics. Because yes, it's great that we have these wonderful winning percentages, but the student athletes are graduating with high GPAs and high graduation rates. We've had some tremendous investments in health and support and a leadership development program that is really a national model, all developed again under Jeff's watch. We will, of course, undertake a national search over this coming year, and we expect a very strong pool of applicants, and we will be celebrating Jeff's accomplishments later this year, but we did want to share the news now. So with that, Jeff, I'd like to acknowledge you and ask you if you'd like to just say a couple of quick words.
Thanks, John. There comes a time in everybody's life where you say, you know, it's time to turn the reins over to someone new. And I've been really blessed to be a part of this university and a great staff, university administration staff. And our athletic staff is such a talented group of individuals. Coaches, student athletes, I mean, it's allowed us to do what we've been able to achieve today. So for me, it's been a work of love. I'm going to miss it. Some parts of it I will. But I'm actually looking forward to working with John. He's asked me to help in the search, and I'm glad to share my insight and whatever wisdom I can extend as we get down the stretch. I really don't think there's a better time to turn over the leadership of this program. We are in a great place, and you always want to feel like you can go out on top, and you went out when you wanted to. Not many athletic administrators get a chance to do that. It's normally the other way around. But for me, it's been a work of love. I look forward to the next 9 months leading this program and working alongside. So appreciate that. Thanks very much.
And Madam Rector, that does indeed represent the conclusion of my report. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
So thank you, President Elder. I personally will save all the mushy stuff for our last meeting together. But I do want to say that I am so appreciative of your leadership, building a program that actually emulates the university's mission to be the model of an engaged university, because you deliver student athletes who are engaged with an incredible level of success, both on the fields and courts of their choice. You deliver student athletes who are phenomenally engaged with the community. The community service numbers that we just heard are incredibly impressive. And I concur with President Malcolm that the student athletes' academic records are incredibly impressive. To have won all three academic awards from the Sun Belt Conference this year, and our very first year in that conference sets a precedence. You are leaving very large shoes to fill. So we'll get mushier in this. Thank you for your leadership. Any other comments? Carly?
If I may, Madam Rector, first, thank you, President Alger, for a most impressive and comprehensive report. As many of you know, I am a returning trustee. And I must say the perspective of having been here several years ago and discussing at that time whether or not we should move forward on many of the key initiatives that have now come to fruition is a really wonderful perspective, because it gives me the insight that this is an administration, a university, a team that understands how to think strategically, plan strategically, and then execute with excellence. And that's very important, and it's not all that common, actually. And so I really listened to this report with great satisfaction to see things that were just an idea 8 or 10 years ago now come to fruition. And I think it should give us all confidence that you spoke about the opportunity to continue to improve, to continue to raise our sites. I think that's exactly right. I think we can have great confidence in the capability of this university. And I must also say that I do believe that this university has a extraordinarily unique value proposition at a very difficult time for higher education, a value proposition that is exemplified by both our superb and superlative outcomes for students, as well as the cost-effective nature of the investment that parents make to get their children here, as well as all the engagement that you talked about and the leadership on a national and a global scale. So congratulations to you and the entire team, to the Board of Visitors that's overseeing this. I'm happy to be back and very impressed with what's possible going forward. I will just close with one comment that I've been thinking about ever since I came back yesterday. There was a general in the Civil War, I won't remember exactly who, you'll forgive me, who is quoted as saying, the biggest mistake a general can make is not to underestimate the strength of the enemy's troops, but to underestimate the strength of their own troops. So I would just say, as we raise our sights and think about the future of JMU, let us not underestimate the strength of our own team.
You're here.
Thank you, Carly. And again, welcome back. Vice Rector Falcon.
President Alger, thank you for the presentation. I was very happy to see a section on the Innovation Center for Youth Justice. It's very rewarding as a board member that's been here for a few years and saw that as a budget line item a couple of years ago to now see that come to fruition. I would just offer that I think this is also a fantastic opportunity to partner with the greater Harrisonburg community with this work and go out into the community. While I was in law school, we put programs together and went into the middle schools during the 8th grade civics unit and did mock trials and got the community very excited. And we did that free of charge. So I'm excited to see where this center goes. I think our centers are one of the best things that we're doing right now with the Civic Center, David Kirkpatrick's and others. So glad to see that there. Would love to get more updates about that as it goes. I know it's just getting started, but that would be my one piece to continue pushing out into the community to continue to engage this area.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. And we'll make note of that for future meetings. Those academic departments, by the way, are particularly good at doing exactly what you're describing. So I fully anticipate that community engagement will be front and center in the work of this center going forward.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Our next agenda item, President Alger, and the overview of the 6-year plan.
All right, so I will get us kicked off and then I'm going to turn it over to several of my colleagues, but just a few quick reminders of what this is. First of all, this is a state requirement under the Higher Education Opportunity Act of 2011, where we work with SHEV and representatives from the executive and legislative branches, where they give us templates that we have to fill out on institutional strategies and all sorts of data on projected costs, tuition and fees, financial aid, economic development, and other topics that includes accompanying narrative, as you've seen. It's a long report. A new plan is submitted in odd years like 2023, and then it's reaffirmed in the even years. The priorities, of course, are aligned with those of the Commonwealth. And very importantly, we want to emphasize that this is an exercise to provide a starting point for discussions. It does not bind the university in terms of specific future decisions. So, Donna, if you could go back, do you have a previous slide there? There it is. Okay, so I just want to emphasize what this is and is not. The 6-year plan is not the same as the university's strategic plan, but of course we align the themes and the needs as much as we possibly can going forward. We, just as a reminder, JMU has a very robust planning process that involves all the different units across the university. And we also have accreditation requirements that inform planning and on which we have to report, as we just did in this decennial review this past year. Okay, Donna, so we go back to that next other slide. And so the process you see is set forth here and occurs in various stages. So this year there were some outside consultants that worked with the Commonwealth to make some revisions to the templates and the process. So it took a little longer than usual, but we start gathering information as we can at the beginning of the calendar year. And then we have a meeting with what's called the OP6, the individuals you see represented there. That occurred on August 22nd in Richmond, where we give the draft to them. They ask questions and ask for further information. We are supposed to get follow-up questions if they have any, which may come as soon as today or sometime in the near future. But what we've been told is that there shouldn't be much, that we were pretty thorough. And so hopefully we provided most of the information that we need to provide. But it is a requirement to have the Board of Visitors review and approve the plan. And then, of course, it has to be finalized in the fall. So now I'm going to turn to Donna Harper, who's going to discuss the enrollment projections in the fall. Donna, the podium is yours.
Well, I'll let you stare at these numbers for just a little bit. We are not projecting much change in terms of our overall freshman class, first year 4650, but that will lead us still to these numbers in terms of what we anticipate. We try to make a key point when we are there in Richmond in terms of financial aid is one of our largest challenges that we have, and state support for that, which will allow us to get those first generation as well as those Pell eligible students. The point that I make every time when I finish my report is, if you will give us the money, our students will graduate. And that is a key factor as compared to a number of the other institutions in the Commonwealth. And so we continue to try to make that point. The changes in the student demographics, as we call now the shift rather than the cliff, because we're hoping that it won't be as substantial as they originally projected. But that is some of the recruitment efforts that we've been working with Chris Myers and his folks and that digital marketing that you saw to increase our awareness and to increase folks knowing what JMU has to offer in the mid-Atlantic areas, where is one of our most best places to recruit our students. We're making strides in different parts of that in terms of Connecticut. We got a number of students from there this year, and we're continuing to build on that. But we're also seeing some good increases in terms of North Carolina and Florida and Texas. So we are expanding some of our reach in terms of hoping to make sure that from the out-of-state component, we're able to continue to meet our yield needs. Any questions? Right now it's Heather.
Don, I have a quick question. Back on one of the slides, and I picked up that there was like 37 states that had sent students there, and how is that compared to 5 years ago?
That's what's increasing. We're seeing, we're trying to really build some networks with where we have strong alumni support. For example, California is another place where we've seen an increase. Now, the increase might be 6 to 10 students, but that's the beginning.
Right. And keep in mind, John, that was just one class on that slide, 39 states just in the entering class. I think we have, it's either 49 or 50.
Just about every
State.
state represented.
I think at one point North Dakota was missing. I don't know if we have a student from North Dakota right now.
We know where they
But that's a significant shift from really the more narrow
Yes.
regional focus that we've had. before.
Yes, the last
It
15,
would be-
20 years ago, it was just up north.
It'd be fun to track that over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, yes, sure.
Yes.
Yep.
So as John has already said, our process intentionally aligns with the JMU strategic plan with the Commonwealth objectives from the outset. I think Don is going to change my slide for me. Thank you. Multitasking as always. And each of our academic initiatives were developed to really address the state goals and achieve our priorities in the university as well as in academic affairs. So this is a sample of the process that we used when we mapped our academic initiatives to the needs of the Commonwealth. So we used the Virginia Plan for Higher Ed as the umbrella, and we identified related key ideas in the guiding principles for Virginia education and the North Star report. And that resulted in 4 major themes for us: health fields, workforce needs, education, and technology. So this next slide, I hope this is right, yes, lists our academic initiatives by those themes and identifies the anticipated source of funding. The majority of these initiatives build on existing successful programs and leverage those areas where really we are very well positioned to make a significant difference. I won't delve into each of these, they're detailed in the report you received, but I'll just highlight an initiative in each category. So the shortage of healthcare providers, both physical health and mental health, is a huge concern, as we already know. And it's an area that JMU has already placed significant attention. And in response, we are proposing a program designed to increase the number of nursing graduates. It's a new, non-traditional, what we call Fast Flex BSN program. It will graduate 30 nurses per year, putting them in the field more quickly as the students are going to complete their nursing coursework in 1 calendar year. We also have a commitment, of course, as you've heard many times now, to meeting the Commonwealth's workforce needs. We're investing resources to develop and assess work-based learning, particularly those that engage and support the community. We plan to create and staff an internship center. And I don't know if we're going to call it an internship center to increase opportunities for those experiences for our students and also provide support for local businesses. In the education realm, we're excited about establishing the Lab School for Innovation and Career Exploration, which would be a lab school that serves students in grades 9 through 12 throughout the Shenandoah Valley. And then finally, we are using technology to better support students while they're here. You've already heard from the president around the early student success system. That is designed to leverage our comprehensive data and the technology that we have available to provide insights and indicators that can connect students with the resources that they need early. So these are some key examples of the ways that we are hoping and planning to assure student success on our campus and throughout their careers, at the same time that we are enriching the Commonwealth and its needs. And I think it's Tawan's turn.
So this is a list of just the rest of the financial strategies that were not covered under the sections that Heather had. And I'm just going to hit on a few of those and kind of explain how the template works with the 6-year plan, because it is something that the Commonwealth tells us exactly how we can fill out the template, and there are parameters to it when it comes to the financial side of the house. So the first one is the increase of salary and benefits for the employees. This is driven by the template. So the state tells us we are to include a 2% pay increase and a 3% increase in medical costs. So that's driven by the program. And all of these were in your packet as well. I wanted to touch on the 2 that are regarding the workforce, the combining faculty promotions and the dollars for our in-band adjustments. That's promotions for classified employees, as well as this general fund request to retain excellent employees. We're asking for money to help us to keep some key places within the university where we're seeing a lot of turnover. We've asked specifically for dollars for that. And then I'll call your attention to Reengineering Madison. This is our 7-year multi-year plan to upgrade our digital platform. So we're starting now, we're implementing our CRM, and this will go forward through to actually replacing PeopleSoft, which is at its end of life. So we're starting with that now. We'll be rolling out advising first. We're really excited about this program. And so that's part of our 6-year plan. And then the other one I will call your attention to, and you've heard a lot about it, is this the support that we're doing for the veterans, the military survivors. That program is extremely expensive for the university, and we're really starting to see it hit us financially. It was $4.2 million this year for 360 students, and we expect it to continue to increase. So that is a part of our plan. So go ahead, Donna. So this is the assumptions that you have to make to actually fill out the template. As President Alger said, it covers from years 2024 to 2030. We focus on the first biennium, which is 24 to 26, and it's based on projections that you make, both in enrollment and also for tuition increases, because the plan only allows for you to show general fund support for salary and benefits. So in order to pay for all of the other strategies that we have, you have to show a tuition component. Now, please understand, and I want to make sure all of the students in the room understand when I say this. This is the plan. This is how you have to do it in order to show how you'll pay for all this. There's a tuition component to the plan. It does not mean that we're raising tuition according to this plan. It just means this is part of the plan. When tuition is talked about, that happens in April. It is a separate vote by the board that happens at that time. So I just want to be really clear about that, because we have to show it in this plan, because you have to show how you're going to pay for things. So go ahead to the next slide. This is the first year of the plan. You'll see all of the strategies that are here. And these are the strategies that have to be covered, the ones on the left-hand side, through non-general funds. So that's where you see that tuition component come in. The top 3 lines, you'll see there's a general fund component. That's because the state, when they have salary increases, they pay for part of it, and then we have to pay approximately 50%. So that's why you see that there's numbers on both sides for non-general and general on the top of that. And then you go down, and all of these other strategies are things that we must pay for. So in the first year of the plan, under non-general, we would have to provide a little over $7 million. General fund is 3.1. We also show a reallocation, so we're absorbing $1 million of the plan by the university for a total that first year of 11.2. And if you move to the second year of the plan, please note that this is cumulative. So you're adding the first year to the second year. That's where you get this 15,572 for the non-general. That's the part that we have to provide. General funds that would be coming from the state is a 6.3. The reallocation with the 2 years would be $2 million, and the total of the plan is almost $24 million. So if you move to the next slide, if we're looking at the tuition component, what would that look like in order for us to raise the funds if we did everything in the plan? It's an in-state undergraduate tuition would be an increase of $388 for the first year and $407 for the second year. The fees for both in-state and out-of-state would be $168 and a $173 increase for the first and second years. And then out-of-state tuition would increase $491 the first year and $501 the second. So that just shows how we would raise the money on that non-general fund side to accomplish everything in the plan if we were to do it. And then finally, go ahead, Donna. This is the total cost of the plan for the 2 years. The first year is 11.2. and the second year increases to 23. And me, Heather, or Donna are happy to answer any questions you might have.
May I, this is both a comment and a question, and I want to say this so that I make sure I understand.
Okay.
For me, the use of the term plan is a little confusing because you all have a strategic plan that represents a set of decisions that have been taken and actions that will follow those decisions. This financial plan, as I understand it, is a document required by the Commonwealth. The way that plan has to be put together is dictated by the Commonwealth.
Correct.
The template that must be used is dictated by the Commonwealth. And so while I should think about this financial plan as representing, may I say, a first pass at the set of strategic priorities you think you want to pursue, what it is not yet is a strategic plan that adds up to your prioritization of your projects, discussions with the state and the Commonwealth about how much money they will provide, what are we doing in year 5 versus year 1, et cetera. So it is a bit of a boilerplate, honestly, other than we need to understand here are the projects that we're thinking about that we want to pursue potentially going forward. And here's how much all that totals up to. And now we begin the strategic planning process. And do I understand that correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And
It's-
Carly, I might just add, probably the more accurate term would be exercise rather than
Yeah,
plan.
I agree. The plan is.
Yeah, and I think the reason that this got passed, and something, this was before my time, but my understanding is this is really more for the Commonwealth to get a grip on, okay, what do we need to be thinking about
Yeah.
as we look forward, right? Because the assumption that you have to make as you turn these in is there are not going to be any new general funds, and as Tawana said, except with the one exception of what we call the fund split with salaries. Well, that's never been
That's right.
the case, since I've been here. So it really helps the Commonwealth think about, okay, what are some of the different demands coming up, the things we need to be thinking about? And then, they meet with the institutions and talk about those things. But I think it really is more helpful in some respects on that side. But I think that's the purpose.
Yes.
But it's to be very clear, this is never really an actual plan because I don't think there's ever been a time when we've actually done everything in the way that this model would show, because every year, of course, you deal with the General Assembly and the actual budget that is passed.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
And you are prioritizing, and I only bring this up because first of all, not only has the Commonwealth always provided funds, but they are becoming increasingly generous to JMU because they understand the value proposition at a higher and higher level. I always worry about charts getting out and people losing the context of it. So if I had not heard this conversation and I saw a big chart that said JMU financial plan, I would assume, oh, that's the plan. This is the tuition increase. This is what we're going to do. And so I just think making sure everyone really understands that this is an exercise dictated by the Commonwealth as much for their purposes as for ours is very important.
Right.
And our own strategic planning exercise ends up prioritizing, having the appropriate authorities, having the appropriate votes in this room, and understanding the actual funding from the Commonwealth.
In that spirit, Carly, that's why that tuition sheet has a disclaimer on it that says it's for modeling purposes only. Because I share your concern. I just didn't want anybody to think that's what we were doing, but the way the template is set, this is how you have to do it.
Well, it's even more valuable for the Commonwealth than it really might be for us.
Yes, I think it is very valuable for the Commonwealth
Right.
because they're trying to figure out what are the needs.
Right. It's an exercise for us, but it's part of their planning,
That's right.
which gets the term the plan, which is not accurate for us.
So I have a process question. And I'm glad you inserted the word exercise. So in this exercise, is there room for discussion of the disparity between incremental growth at JMU and incremental growth at other places? For example, like if UVA says we want the Commonwealth to come in 5% more for us, that's very different than JMU saying 5% for us because the numbers are not the same. And when that happens iteratively, you create a different delta between the two. Is there room in the very strict, regimented, templated process for doing this to have that conversation as it relates to ROI?
Well, what I would say, Jack, and Tuan and others certainly can jump in too. I think the answer is yes. And the way it happens is every institution. So if you're on the other side of the table, right, at Chev or in what we call the OP6 from the executive and legislative branches, they're getting all of these from all the schools, right? And so they are looking for exactly the kind of thing you're talking about, because that's their responsibility in part, right, is to say, gosh, if all these schools say they want to grow by some huge amount, we've got to think this through, right? And so in those conversations, that is some of what comes up because they've seen all of the plans. And as they meet with each school, they'll say, well, you know, obviously not everybody is going to be able to, not that schools have said this, but you know, they all want to grow 25%. That's not going to happen. Numbers aren't there, right? So that's where the back and forth in the conversations happens, not just the one meeting we had in August, but that really continues throughout the year in the meetings with the Secretary of Education and Chev. So I think that's part of how it helps them when they sort of are thinking broadly about the Commonwealth as a whole and, you know, the value proposition for JMU, but they're also hearing about the value proposition for each of the other schools and where the other schools are struggling. And then the last thing I'd mention is there are certain common themes they will hear from everybody. For example, the unfunded mandates like the military scholarship, which is a great program, right? But it's an unfunded mandate that costs many millions of dollars across the Commonwealth. So that's also part of what emerges from this process is they see, oh, okay, every single school, which I'm certain they did, identified this as an issue that has to be covered. So does that help? I mean, I think it's an iterative process that will continue, not just this fall, but as we go forward, planning and discussing the Chev and the OP6. Did I?
Yeah.
I think.
But just to follow on, when we, just my same question, different words, when we present this, and it's got a lot of JMU specific information that is wonderful, is there ever room in the process to do it comparative?
I think, if I may, I think what Jack is talking about, on a comparative basis, we get less.
Right.
On a percentage basis
Gotcha.
than our competitor schools in Virginia. A lot less.
Yes.
And the value proposition for some at the very top is not as compelling.
Yes.
And so the question is, can that be highlighted to say, yes, we're all together with all these other schools and our needs, but by the way, you've been shortchanging us for a while.
Yeah.
And we have a better value proposition.
Jack's specific question. In the discussion that there is nothing in the templated document that gets delivered that allows us to compare, here's where we stand next to our peers.
Right.
That is up to them to take all the different plans and lay them next to each other and figure it out. It comes up in the conversation.
Yeah, I was looking,
Yeah,
let
we
me
did
just say,
mention it, yeah.
we do,
mentioned
Carly and Jack, we mention this every, I mean, they're frankly, you know, they're sick of hearing it from us, but, you know, but they've actually started to move.
Yes.
One of the results of these conversations over the last couple of years is we actually got additional general funds finally for JMU, recognizing the funding disparity, which by the way, has a lot to do with when you start as an all-women's teachers college, very different starting point, right? So that is sort of a central point that we have made at the outset of these meetings in the last several years. And I think it's at least started to gain some traction in the General Assembly.
Mr. President. Sorry, I think the specific answer to Jack's question though is no.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, right?
But
It's no.
Yeah, I mean,
But
Not in that document, cannot achieve
gotta
what Jack
go about
asked in that document.
no, not in the document. We talked about it when we went and we presented our plan. We actually, I had an opportunity to address the OP6 and I specifically spoke about that. But no, it's not in the plan.
Nicole, do you have a comment?
Can,
I did.
can,
And I think Jack would appreciate this. This is one way we share information with
Yes.
Richmond, okay, and others. And I think this says to us that we need to double down on our Richmond presence. Because that's where we get to provide that narrative that we are doing more with less and having better outcomes. So I just would reiterate that working with Caitlin, I look forward to working with Caitlin. Unfortunately or fortunately, I spent a lot of time in Richmond. I think we need to, yes, add to this conversation.
Michael? do you
I
have a
think
comment?
what was just drawn out there is that there's a frame that we've been using that might need to be reframed from percentages to real dollars.
That is a good point.
because equal percentage increases across the board over time increase disparity.
That's
Right.
exactly beautifully
It
said.
compounds.
That's where we've been. Exactly right.
That is
And
what we,
a challenge we've
yeah.
been dealing with.
and Jack, that is exactly the point we have made every conversation with the legislators and with the OP6. We always say, please stop focusing on percentages across the board, look at the dollars, right? Because it is a huge disparity when you look at a William and Mary and what a 1% increase does in their tuition compared to say a 1% increase here.
I like the way Jack worded it, though. It might be unintentional disparities.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
That
that's a
registers
good
with
wording.
me.
Yeah, very good. Beautifully stated. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I really appreciate the dialogue and the perspectives around the table. If there are no further questions, this is something that the board, again, from a state mandate, is required to vote on. So may I have a motion? To.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, so moved. Thank you very much. Next up is Vice President of Student Affairs, Tim Miller, to give us a review of the JMU Valor Program.
Well, good morning. I'm excited to be here this morning to talk to you about JMU Valor. JMU Valor is our program dedicated to military connected faculty, staff, and students. This has been in student affairs now for 2 years. It's existed longer before that, but we took this on 2 years ago. Excited to share some updates and also share some things that we do differently than what you'll see other places. So one of the things we do differently is this number is already wrong. What we have found is historically across the country, military connected programs only deal with veterans. They only honor the sacrifices of veterans. And one of the decisions we made last year was to also honor the sacrifices and the service of our dependents. And what that means is you get an even bigger number. We're not doing this to inflate our numbers. We're doing this because those that are dependents, and as someone who's a military dependent myself, they serve and they sacrifice alongside their families. They have families who miss graduations, who miss family events, who miss birthdays. They are serving alongside them, whether they're on the field or not. So what has happened actually is we were traditionally just counting those that were using the GI Bill for themselves, for our veterans. And then we were counting the dependents who were using their parents' GI Bill. What we found is a lot of parents that are veterans have already used their GI Bill for another parent. So what we found is as we've done a lot of outreach this year, we found a lot of students who are dependents, but they're not currently using the GI Bill. So this number of total students is now 1,300. So we found about 1,200 now students that are dependents that are here on this campus and that also are looking for this community, have lived a different lifestyle, lived a different life, and are looking for this community, and we've been able to provide that to them. So as we look at this, again, continue to increase the students using the GI Bill, either veteran or not, was only about 880 a year ago. So our number has continued to increase. I think also the Virginia Veteran Program that exists has helped that as well. And our goal is to become one of the best places for military connected students in the country. So the Resource Center has just moved. We had one of the Student Success Center for years. The students liked part of it and didn't like part of it, and I'll explain that. It was an outside door because the students never wanted to feel like it was a zoo, sort of people looking in saying who's in there. But it was also on an outside of the building. It was hard to get to. They also didn't like the fact that it had no bathroom. So it was not exactly what they needed. So with the support of the unions team and the team in administration and finance, we've been able to move them to Taylor Down Under. So for those that don't know, the first floor of Taylor Hall. The values of that, A, obviously there's a bathroom there. Two, it's also a 24/7 space. These students have asked for a space that they can access 24/7. So when they need it, they can go in there. It's been a really great place for them to gather and connect. For example, our average last year was about 2 to 3 students per day. We're now seeing between 7 and 20 students per day in the space. It's in a more public place. They can find it more easily. It's also right across from the bus stop. So it's really exposed this population to the benefits. I will note, just as a side part, we also offer snacks and a massage chair, so that tends to drive a bit of the traffic. We also have done a lot of different programming. This is our students at the Student Veterans Association NatCon National Conference every year. We try to send at least 3 students every year to that. This is a place that our veterans can go and get jobs. It's a way they can network with other student veterans from across the country. So it's been a really great experience for us to send students there. And last, Tom Cruise was not here, but we did, in collaboration with the University Program Board, hosted in Bridgeport Stadium on the big screen, Top Gun Maverick last spring as the first sort of big event for Valor, really for the whole community. Imagine that field full of not of football players, but of students watching a movie. It was a really great experience for the students and for JMU Valor. Another thing that we're doing that's very different, we're the only school in the Commonwealth to do this right now. We are the new home of the Department of Veteran Services in the Shenandoah Valley. They previously were in Stanton, and they were in Charlottesville, and they were in Front Royal. We are now the home for DVS. We have offered office space, and again, thanks to our friends in administration and finance, parking for both the staff and for the veterans that come. So we are now available to local veterans. They don't have to get as far as, again, Stanton, Charlottesville, or Front Royal. They'll be able to come to our office, get those services from that staff. And this is not something that anyone else is doing. And we felt like it was an important thing as we moved to this new space to provide an office that had 2 offices. So we have one for our staff member, John Jordan, who's a grad student here, and one for DVS. And also Department of Family Veteran Services has asked if they could be there several days a week too. Benefits also are, again, right across the street from the bus stop, and just really proud of this ability to really provide something to the local veteran community, not just our campus veterans. And then what made this possible? The AT&T of Virginia team has now given $25,000 over 2 years, our largest sponsor. Nick and his team, as you heard earlier, Madison Trust, we were proud that JMU Valor was part of the Madison Trust program a year ago. Gave us the seed funding for the first 2 years of our program to be able to do what we've been doing. And then Student Affairs in the Graduate School has been a huge supporter for us. Really want to thank Dean Linda Thomas, a veteran herself, who also has helped us with a graduate stipend and helped us make sure that this was possible. I'll also note, and Donnie, you can go to the next slide. One of the things that we're really excited about is that there's a show called Military Makeover that has a side show called Operation Career. This is hosted by Montel Williams. They sought us out and asked if we would become one of their newest episodes. So in recent weeks, Dean Linda Thomas, President Alger, and Jake Nadler, one of our student veterans, went on camera and were able to talk about JMU Valor, talk about their own experience serving, and appreciate President Alger's leadership, one, in being in that space, but also allowing us the freedom to pull this off. But late in November, we'll be featured in our own basically episode of Operation Career. that will play on every single one of the channels for military TV. We will also get a copy of it. We will get really broad sort of viewership about the work that we're doing for our veterans. This gives you some quick snapshots of the Valor opening that we had. Very proud that we were able to have Delegate Tony Wilt, appreciate Caitlin Reed and her team in Savannah for making that happen. We also though had several VFW and American Legion members here with us, so it was amazing for them to be in the space, and the intergenerational interactions that we're seeing between our students and the veterans is really one of the best sort of unexpected benefits of this. They're able to talk to veterans that served in previous wars and then talk about their own service. And also appreciate that ROTC has become a great partnership for us. We work with them regularly. And our next event with them, also with College of Education, Dean Lesperance and Dean Thomas, is Veterans Day, November 11th. You can go to the next slide. Is this event where we put over 7,000 flags on the quad. That is to honor lives lost, military lives lost in the war on terror. So we'll have this event. We will also have taps will be played right at 8 a.m. And JMU Dining has been amazing. They now have themed food that day to help raise awareness of what Veterans Day is. They also have now set up a missing man table in both E Hall and D Hall. If you've never seen one, it is a really great remembrance where it is a table without someone in it, one seat, really a lot of emblematic pieces of it that really raise awareness. We want to make sure that students understand and faculty and staff that veterans are here, that they served for all of us and honor them. It will be on November 9th, not the 11th, because the 11th is a Saturday. But excited to do that. And we are right now still working our way financially towards a full-time position down the road. And then we will be applying for the Military Friendly Schools program that I'm planning to present at the NASPA military conference in the spring on what work that we've done. We have also stood on the shoulders of many other people, those that did this program before us, but also learned from lots of other programs. This is not a hint to one, but I met with the Notre Dame person. He's like, once the president gave us $2 million, everything else was easy. So I said, I'm sure it was. But no, I think I might have one more. Yes. So the last thing, Mantech has been a really great supporter of us. We just actually this week had a great meeting with them where they came, they've hired a number of our graduates. So this is from that group last year, and this is last year's graduation celebration. We had several graduates, including Denise Frisky in the middle, with her son, who just graduated last year and was last year's founding grad student of the program. So that's my update on JMU Valor. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Dr. Miller. I don't know if there's another veteran at the table here. But as one who returned to school after serving, and when we had very few resources, by very few, I mean none. This is just overwhelming. And I think I can safely speak for every veteran who will come in contact with JMU of how grateful we are for this. This is a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
So Dickie, you got another veteran at the table.
Good.
And I echo that. It's really awesome. I got just vignette. I got a classmate from West Point who sent her daughter here largely because of what we're doing with JMU Valor. So I think it's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's interesting. We've also had some parents that have said, what can I do? So we actually now have added for the first time a parent on our advisory board, whose daughter is here, and he's on parents council too. And he said, hopefully you won't kick me off like they will when my daughter graduates, but we'll keep them on. And it's good to have parents who have bought into this and have really wanted to make it more successful. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions about this program? It's tremendous. Thank
Nice
you.
work.
Next up is Nick Langbridge talking about big ideas. Our VP is development.
Good morning.
Morning.
Like Tim, I'm also a military dependent. A sign on the walls, home is where the Army sends you. Until after 8 different moves, I was at JMU. And so I again salute Tim for the leadership on this front. And I also just want to say congratulations to longtime mentor, colleague and friend, Jeff Bourne, on his career. I spent my first 7 years under his tutelage, working in intercollegiate athletics here. And he taught me a lot. And even when I was at the lowest levels, he took time out of his day to show interest and to help spur me on. So I appreciate you, Jeff. President Alger, as many of you know, always encourages us to do one thing, and that's to dream big. He said it in many different ways. You can't walk into his office without seeing signs that say dream big everywhere. And so here we are to have an important conversation. And to start that off, I'm going to quote Goethe. And some of you may know this quote, but it goes like this. Goethe is a German poet, playwright, novelist. And he said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And so in that spirit, what we've learned in the past at JMU is that when you are visionary and when you develop a focused set of priorities, you identify them, you articulate them, you codify them, when you brand them into a plan and communicate them and over communicate them, something really special happens. People around campus buy in, resources begin to align, collaboration starts to happen, donors start to invest, and that vision comes to reality. You've seen evidence of that, as Carly said, in this meeting and in other meetings where those visions have come to bear fruit for this campus. And so we're at a poignant time in the university's history where it's time to once again, as John has asked us to, dream big. And therefore, we chose to launch the Big Ideas Working Group. And we asked two outstanding strategic thinkers to lead this working group. And so I'd like to invite them up. And that is Sheila Smith, our Associate Vice President for Advancement Planning and Operations, and Chris Oram, our AVP who leads University Planning and Institutional Research. And you added one more word recently to that. What was that? Planning Analytics. So analytics, yes, good. Welcome, Chris and Sheila.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Chris and I greatly appreciate this opportunity to provide an update on the Big Ideas Working Group. First, we'd like to back up just a little bit to last February when President Alger invited EAB to campus to facilitate a workshop focused on future visioning. I believe you all are also familiar with EAB as they facilitated several of the board retreats as well. During the retreat, which involved close to 200 leaders from across campus, academic unit heads, department directors, deans, associate vice presidents, etc. We focused on two different areas. One is this concept of a Big Ideas call for proposals and some best practices from other universities who have implemented this type of process. And then second was the notion that it's so important to have long-term planning. Next slide, Donna. And then, to kind of reiterate back to what Carly said, how challenging that can be. And how many organizations don't do that incredibly well because we get mired down in the short-term planning. We have to keep the lights on, we have to keep things running and moving and make incremental changes. But really, they were pushing us to think about the long-term vision of where we want to go, because that's what will make us distinctive and continue to keep us competitive. Following that workshop, President Alger invited Nick to champion a Big Ideas Working Group. All of the vice presidents were asked to nominate representatives to serve on this group so that it would be representative of the entire university. So Chris is going to go into a little bit more detail, but I do want to stress, and I'm so glad this has already been touched on by Carly and by Nick, that we by no way want to suggest that we don't dream big at JMU, that now we've had an EAB workshop, so we suddenly are going to start dreaming big. That's certainly not the case. We'd be calling ourselves Madison College if it were. If we harken back to next slide, Donna, more recent examples is the Madison Plan, the strategic plan that President Alger commissioned when he started here. Within that plan were identified major initiatives. These were the things we wanted to accomplish in the future, those long-term plans. Things like Valley Scholars and the Madison Center, James Madison Center for Civic Engagement. That's the next slide, Donna, sorry. There we go. So we do this, and we do this already, and we've done it well. So what's different about this Big Ideas Working Group? Next slide, Donna. So the most exciting part for us about this is the general call to all of campus to submit your proposal. This isn't a top-down approach. This is very grassroots, wanting to make sure that everyone feels like they have an opportunity to see these ideas. Yes, these ideas will hopefully eventually, some of them become priorities in our next comprehensive fundraising campaign. And they will also be represented as strategies and objectives in our next strategic plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris to tell you how we're doing that.
So what is a big idea, right? That was the first question that the working group tackled this summer. And you can see here, and I'll just read it just to get it out there. But big ideas, with the definition we landed on was that big ideas inspire a broad array of the JMU community to leverage our distinctive strengths and create pathways to new opportunities that contribute to a better university and a better world. And obviously that's really trying to be an all-encompassing definition that really strikes at the heart of what we're looking for. These are not necessarily suggestions, right? These are ideas that are transformative in nature. And if you can go to the next slide. We know that it's a mouthful of a definition. So what we've tried to do as a working group is really break that down into different criteria. These are the criteria that we think encompass what a big idea is and what we're really looking for as a working group in the ideas that are being submitted. So really break that into 4 criteria. The first is really about strengths, right? We're looking for proposals and ideas that focus on existing strengths at JMU, but may also highlight areas that we haven't necessarily historically considered a strength, and may open opportunities to new pathways and create new opportunities to focus on new strengths. And we're looking for ideas that might do one or the other, but we don't want to leave that kind of an either or. It's also an and, right? So it could be an idea that both enhances an existing strength of JMU, but also creates pathways for new ideas. We also want ideas we're looking for ideas that are collaborative. We think that a big idea is one that looks across divisions, across units, reaches outside of the university, may engage with community and partners or others outside of the university. A big idea is also something that's going to have a positive impact. And we really define this at different levels, right? A big idea might have an impact that is really focused on improving some aspect of the university. But it might be a big idea that also enhances or improves some aspect of the community, or the state, or the region, the nation, the world. We're not trying to say that an idea that has a global impact is any bigger of an idea than an idea that focuses on JMU, but we want to make sure that all ideas at whatever level they impact are submitted and are considered. And then the final criterion is that it differentiates the university in some way. So a big idea is one that really sets us apart. It sets us apart as a leader within the state, or maybe among other research universities. But it could also differentiate us in some area that's outside of higher ed, right? It might differentiate us among the healthcare field. But it does something that sets us apart in some way, shape, or form. And so those criteria are a way that we've broken out what we're looking for and what we're hoping for in proposals for big ideas. And really excited at what may come of this. If you want to go to the next slide. So right now what we've done is we've launched the website. Proposals are now live. And there's a lot of additional information here, such as frequently asked questions. We've developed a rubric that helps show kind of what exactly we're looking for and how we're evaluating the ideas that come in, as well as the template itself. And we've opened that. We're keeping this open. That one of the recommendations of the working group is that really we keep this open for a while, right? A big idea is not something necessarily that can be generated overnight. And so even if someone's been thinking about it for a while, we wanted to make sure that they had time to work with folks around campus, to reach out, to make those partnerships. Many of us know how hard it is sometimes to set up a meeting among folks. So we wanted to make sure that there was time for that. And so the submissions will be open until March 8th, at which time we'll collect those and then go through them and eventually come up with a set of those big ideas that will hopefully be able to push forward. And that is that's our idea. How's that? We'll take any questions you all have at this point in the process.
No comments? Questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Next topic, I'm going to call on to Miller once again to come in and give us an update on career outcomes, which to me is probably one of the most exciting conversations we can have as a demonstration of value.
Agreed, and thank you. I'm only up here briefly, really just to introduce the team, but I will say before they get up here, because they won't say about themselves, you're about to see some pretty extraordinary numbers. These are not fluff, these are real numbers. These come from lots of different people's efforts. I think you'll see and you'll hear the deans are very bought into this. I think we all know that there's an important part of this is that our students should graduate. When they graduate, they should know what they're doing next. And I would say that JMU is extraordinary in both of those ways. We help our students graduate at very high levels and we help them find where they're going next at very high levels. While they won't all speak, I do want to note and recognize Sam Squires, Emma Gibbons, Sarah LaFrance, Colleen Waller, and Laura Hickerson, the rest of the staff that are here, and ask if they could stand just to be recognized. This is much, we rolled pretty deep today. I wanted to have the leadership team of the University Career Center here with you. So if there are follow-up questions, they can hear them and help field them, but also so they can hear what you're going to hear, which is really amazing work that's been done. And I'll ask Miles Stratton and Libby Wesley to come up, who will be presenting this to you, and really want to highlight Libby and her leadership. Since returning to JMU, I always get to have an alum return back home and ask her and Miles to share some great news with you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for the time this morning. I am thrilled to be able to share what I think is a really positive sign or indicator of that value proposition that's been talked about a couple of times today. So I am, again, my name is Miles Stratton. I'm an Associate Vice President here at Student Affairs, and I'm thrilled to be here with my colleague.
Hi, everyone. My name is Libby Wesley. I direct in the University Career Center, graduated in 1994.
All right, so we're going to be talking, I'll provide an overview of the career outreach data, sort of a 10,000 foot view. And then Libby's going to talk through the specifics of the class of 2022 information. I'll talk about the local impact that we're seeing from our graduates. And then Libby's going to talk about the great work that's happening to engage employers to continue this virtuous cycle that we're seeing. All righty, so the term career outcome may be unfamiliar to some of you, so I'm going to provide a quick definition of that. So a career outcome is part of a broader effort called a First Destinations Report that is normed by the National Association for Career Work, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and also the same language used by the Department of Education. So it is desirable, by and large, for our graduates to have an outcome. And an outcome includes full or part-time work, internships or service programs, military service, or graduate school. And to not have an outcome is that you are still seeking employment or additional education, or you're not seeking. So something like taking a gap year. So someone not having an outcome may be a natural part of their growth process after graduation. But by and large, we are hoping to see outcomes. So for the class of 2022, we have really incredible information to share. So big picture for our bachelor's degree recipients and our advanced degree recipients, 96.3% of those recipients have an outcome. So if you look here at our chart for bachelor's folks, that means 74.1% of them are working, 21.5% of them are continuing their education, and 0.5% of them are pursuing military service. For advanced degrees, you would imagine the working percentage is much higher at 92.9%. For those that are continuing their education, that's 3.9%, and military is 0.4%. So when you average those out, that's where you get that 96.3 number, and then we have 3.7% of those folks that are that do not have an outcome.
Next slide. All right, so this slide here shows the bachelor's degree information there. And so again, you can see that we have 96.1 overall, and then it's showed by college. So the outcomes are strong among all of the colleges, and so it's great to be able to see that consistency there as well. This slide here shows the top 12 employers for the bachelor's recipients. And what I love about this slide is that 9 out of 12 of those organizations hired from multiple colleges. So every once in a while, there's information out there that recruiters are only interested in certain colleges more than others, but they're interested. And I also think that speaks to the value of our education program across all of our disciplines. So I love seeing that Deloitte hired a graphic designer from the College of Visual and Performing Arts. This next slide shows the salary distribution for our bachelor's candidates. The overall average was 57, almost 58,000, and you can see there are differences among the colleges there. Always something we're working on. And also, you know, salary is not necessarily and always the best definition of success of our graduates. So it's just one of the metrics that are there. Happens to be one of the metrics that are part of the NACE protocols when we're collecting data. This slide here shows some comparison data. The National Association of Colleges and Employers collects data from colleges and universities about their outcomes and then segments it in all of these different pieces. So this chart here shows where JMU is and where we've been the last 3 years. NACE has not yet released their class of 2022 data yet. We left room to add it on, hoping it would be ready for today. So we'll keep checking the website and let you all know when it gets there. But you can see that JMU is higher across all categories, or at least the two here. And they are, you know, higher, and I'll be just featured those two categories, the national and the R2 areas. This next set of slides shows the advanced degree recipients. We have fewer of those than we do undergraduates, of course. And they're doing great across all of the colleges. One thing we noticed with the advanced degrees, there's fewer of them going on to continuing education, and more of them are working. This slide shows the salary distribution for the advanced candidates, graduates, and the average salary is 70,000 here, so considerably higher than it was for our undergraduates. It's good to know that the advanced degrees pay off.
So happy to talk about the local impact of our graduates. So when looking at this particular slide, you'll see that 58.3% of employee bachelor's degree recipients are working in Virginia. 67.2% of our bachelor's degree recipients are continuing their education in Virginia, and 67% of our advanced degree recipients are working in Virginia. So all told, you're looking at just for the class of 2022, thousands of JMU graduates entering the workforce here in Virginia. Looking at the geographic distribution of that, this is information that has been pretty consistent year after year. Northern Virginia is the primary job destination for our graduates, but you see it, significant graduates in Central Virginia, which is Richmond and Charlottesville. Right here in the Valley, which is really encouraging, we see almost 17% of graduates staying here locally, and then 10% in Hampton. So those are the 4 regions that definitely are where our students are finding employment right after graduation. Looking at, there's been a lot of good conversation in the 6-year plan and other spaces this morning, and super encouraging to see plans for expanding nursing graduates and meeting that critical workforce need. But for the class of 2022, looking at the sort of present reality, 65.5% of nursing graduates stayed here in Virginia, which means that in total 116 JMU nurses are currently working here in the Commonwealth. And that's just for this one class. If you look at the chart here, you'll see common places and the most common places where those folks have placed. Looking at the next slide, you'll see another really critical part of the workforce here in the Commonwealth, teachers that are being produced by JMU. So again, just for the class of 2022, 188 JMU graduates indicated that they're teaching in Virginia, and that's 73.7% of the overall JMU teaching graduates. So you put that together, and just for the class of 2022, there are over 300 nurses and teachers working here in Virginia from JMU. And again, looking at the chart, you'll see the common places for those folks going on to work. Go to the next slide. And then looking at the locations for those graduates and the employers that are employing a lot of our folks. You'll see again in a similar structure, that small column there, 25 plus hires, 15 plus hires, and then 16 to 14 hires. And I think as we get into this next section where Libby's going to talk about employer engagement, you're going to see a Venn diagram that is largely overlapping between the folks that are hiring a lot of JMU grads and the folks that are here talking to JMU grads on a regular basis, because we consistently hear from employers how much they love having JMU students working for them. So with that, I'll pass it back over to them.
All right, so just to give you a sense of how do recruiting organizations engage with JMU and the University Career Center. So we use a system called Handshake. That's where all of our recruiters post jobs and internships that they have. Last year, we had 104,085 unique job descriptions or job postings that were in the site, and that came from 9,500 different organizations. So the number of organizations interested in JMU students is very high. We also have other ways that employers can engage with the University Career Center and our students, and we love it when they take advantage of these other opportunities aside from job postings. So we have organizations that come on campus for career fairs. So we had 2 career fairs this week. The SCIES fair, we worked with the College of Integrated Science and Engineering with their career fair, and also the Nursery Recruiting Day as well. And we'll have some other fairs that are coming up. So last year we had 613 organizations that came to something besides posting jobs. So career fairs is one of those opportunities. Another of when they come on campus and want to interview students for internships and full-time jobs, they'll come into the University Career Center to host those interviews. Sometimes they even do that virtually, but they'll work through our office to set up the schedules. We have lots of organizations that will host an information table across campus in high traffic areas. Often they're in the Hart School for those opportunities. Organizations can also host information sessions where they present information about the organization and the kinds of opportunities that they have. Those can be done in person here on campus or else virtually online. So these are the organizations that were on campus the most, did something besides job postings. And so you'll recognize a lot of those as organizations that hired the most of our students. So Deloitte, the Addison Group, Accenture Federal Services, these organizations, again, the more often they come to campus, the more successful they tend to be. That in-person connection really does a lot to help them. So these are some upcoming dates, a couple of past dates that I thought you might be interested in from the University Career Center. There's 2 main things that we do in the Career Center. The first part of what we do is prepare students to be able to talk about themselves and represent their experiences, their academic experiences first and foremost, their involvement in clubs and organizations across campus, and jobs and internships that they've held, and other special experiences they might have had, undergraduate research, study abroad, participating in service learning, and just other life things that might have been a part of their world. So we want them to be able to communicate about themselves effectively and to be able to target that to employers, graduate schools, whoever they're trying to talk about their experience with. So one part of what we do in the Career Center is help students develop that language and practice. Another part of what we do in the University Career Center is create a network of people and opportunities. So the more people who know about JMU and what kinds of students we have, their skills, their talents, and then have opportunities to employ them or have them in graduate school. So we create this network of people and opportunities, and then we try to bring the students and these employers and other opportunities together. So I mentioned career fairs before as one of those ways of doing that. You can see the list of career fairs there. Roseanne Resumes is a collaboration with the Office of Alumni Engagement. Our alumni board comes back for a meeting, and then they are the networkers. So our students have an opportunity to meet members of the alumni board and practice talking about themselves. That event was just last week. It was great. Closed Cookies and Resumes is another event that we have to help prepare students for the upcoming career fairs. Also of note, we have a career closet. I think this was probably mentioned last time we were here as well. But we have the career closet where people can donate clothes. Students can come into the career closet, take up to 5 items each semester. The items in the closet are work attire, professional dress, things they might wear to a career fair. We've had lots of traffic that way this year, so exciting. This Sunday, we have an event called Success Suits You. It's a partnership with JCPenney. There's also some other stores in the Valley Mall that are participating this year as well. So these stores are offering deep discounts to students, faculty, staff, and alumni to help them build their professional wardrobe. The graduate school fair next week, that is not part of what our office does, but we will be there to help, and we do support students who are pursuing graduate study, helping them with their personal statements, their CVs, and again, preparing to talk about themselves. So that's a little bit about what we do in the Career Center and some upcoming things. One of our areas of focus this year and in coming years are career fairs. I love career fairs, and I always tell students we have 70 organizations coming on day 1, a different 70 on day 2, 70 opportunities to practice introducing themselves. So our call is for all students, all class years, all majors. So I hope all students feel invited to the fair. We want them coming to the fair and talking to organizations. I usually say 30 minutes and 5 organizations. So we started communicating this message that we wanted all students, all class years, all majors to come to the fair last year, and you can see the increase in our first year student attendance. So I think if we can get them to the career fair once their first year, then they'll keep coming as the years go by. So one of the things that the increase in student attendance is doing, as well as the increased employer attendance, it's going to give us the opportunity to move the University Career Fairs to the Atlantic Union Bank Center in the fall. So we'll be able to double or quadruple the capacity for student and employer attendance. So this is pretty big for the Career Center and for our students. So we will make that move in the fall. If you want to write down the dates of the Spring Career Fair, February 27th and 28th will still be in festival, but we'll be opening registration then. And I will look to the university's help to get us to capacity over there in the Bank Center in the next couple of years. Question.
Happy to take any questions. I think one thing that I want to note about the shift to the AUBC is that I've worked at other places where working with the athletic department is, and to get into really prominent facilities on campus is like pulling teeth. And it, in keeping with the theme of appreciating Mr. Bourne and the athletic department generally, it could not have been more welcoming and more open to the idea of having fair in AUBC, which I think is a testament to being great partners. And I think I would also be remiss if I didn't note that the University Career Center does tremendous work to get this information together, but the effectiveness of the Career Center is the product of so many partnerships. And it's so great to hear, the Science Fair has been a long standing, such a impactful experience, but there's a variety of others, and the more academic engagement, the more partnerships we have, like with that athletic department and academic side of the house, the better shape we're in.
So, yeah, I have two comments first. First and foremost, thank you very much for the presentation, all the data. I personally believe that this content, as well as our graduation rate, are some of the most important elements of data for us as board members to consume, because I think it completely illustrates the value that this university produces, not only for every student who comes, but also for the Commonwealth. The number of students who then become employees in the Commonwealth and then can give back is a tremendous number. So I think this data really underscores the value that JMU delivers. The other thing I neglected to share with you during the 6-year planning conversation, but it kind of fits here too. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Secretary Wadera, who said that in reviewing the 6-year plans, after meeting with JMU, she ended up quoting President Alger to all the other presidents, which probably did not make him any friends. But his comment to say JMU's focus is that every student graduates was such an important single statement that stood for what JMU's mission is, and how we do it. Did I get that right? Okay. Okay. So I did want to share that. I think, Terry, 1 second, John. was first. Go ahead.
You want to go first?
I wanted to make a statement and say that it's. I mean, we've all known this, but it's nice to see the data emerge with the real value, right? Because Buffett has this quote, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And I don't know if there's any comparative value proposition that's really better. I mean, I have a sophomore here and she got in 4 comparative schools, and each one of those schools was on average $25,000 a year more in tuition. So she picked here on her own, but she had the numbers and the math, and she came away and said, well, if I get the same exact education for this price, this is a better value. And I think she would argue that she's getting a better undergraduate education and a better undergraduate experience for 60% of the price. So, I mean, it's an incredible return on investment, especially when you list the salaries that are coming out for these 2022 graduates. The payback for the investment in JMU is an incredible value, right? It's when you were posting those slides, I was yearning for one more slide that showed, like, if this is what you pay for 4 years as an undergrad, and this is the major that you graduate, this is how long it takes you to pay it back. And that's for any kid, for any parent, for any customer or consumer. It's an incredible value, and it's just it's a little bit of our habit not to underscore and highlight that all the time. But I do think as we're emerging more and more into this national endeavor, it's a striking value.
I agree full-heartedly. Miles and Libby, those numbers are staggering. And there's a reason we're the #1 university for getting a job. And those numbers back that up. But I deal a lot with families in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, Arlington County, who are first-gen families. And they do feel that return on their investment and that this university is a value. But I just want to say thank you for the career closet too, and free professional headshots, because those things can be a huge barrier for having students participate in career fairs. I know that because I've heard that from them directly. So that's a way that you're addressing and removing those equity gaps that will prevent someone from participating in those. I was also happy to see the NACE numbers for the 2020 grads, because I came on this board in the summer of 2020, and I have voiced concerns about the graduating class of 2020 and whether they were not going to be in a good outcome. And it's good to see there is a drop off. I hope that we're continuing to follow and track that class to make sure that few years post graduation that they also have good outcomes.
Very good. I echo everyone else's comments. Great work. What is the best way to package this in a nice way that we can share with legislators? And we have a great opportunity this year with a lot of potentially new leaders to create a new vision of an R2 school. Just a question.
Yeah.
Nick?
Well, it's a partnership of 2 people over there.
Yeah,
So-
That's why I started there.
That packages the data from last year. Savannah's working hard on updating that for this year. It is one of our most powerful tools in Richmond, that one pager, to say not only do our students graduate, they go on to work and serve the Commonwealth in these ways. And so I'm happy to get that over to you.
It would be great to get it to all of us as we are interacting with others. We can share that.
So I will say that to the comments of Secretary Guidera, I did come back to her and retort, and they get jobs. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's true. So
And they stay in Virginia. She should be very excited about it.
And I think it mirrors a lot of what has already been asked and said. But I am frequently thinking about what piece comes next with the stat that we're the #1 university in Virginia for getting a job. and the question of why, I think the messaging piece, you've done an excellent job of getting freshmen and sophomore into the career fairs, which is wonderful for them to think about it at an early stage. What is being done in terms of messaging for incoming students as we focus on one of our core goals of attracting the students of tomorrow? I know at orientation, or not orientation, but when students come here, prospective students come here, they're getting so much information that maybe it's not possible there. Is there a way to message this to potential students? For example, when we put out that stat about being number one and getting a job, is there a possibility to have a link to say, and here's why, and link it to some of this incredible information about what we do? I know in the academic committee yesterday, we went maybe a little bit off script, Heather, with involving the folks in the room, helping us better understand what they're doing to provide work-based experiences. We had a few deans in the room who weighed in on that. We had the Office of Professional Development. Am I getting that right? Office of Professional School Education. Is that what you mean? Yes, thank you. It was a really robust and I thought extremely helpful conversation for us as board members to understand all of the things that happen here at the university to help students be prepared, but also get a job. So I just think about the comments about us being aware of it, but also our stakeholders all being aware of it, legislators, but incoming students. So what are we doing there?
A lot.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But it's one of the main themes in all of our messaging and enrollment marketing. And I should note also, immediately pre-pandemic, we had an event in Richmond where President Alger spoke, along with the senior executive vice president of Handshake. And JMU was the first university and still the only one in the Commonwealth that figured out how to crack the code to get handshake opportunities flowing onto our websites without having to log in. So every single major overview that you go to, accounting, education, whatever, on that page where we send all freshmen and their parents, you have opportunities for JMU students, jobs, internships, and it's on the recruitment material. So it is front and center on messaging.
Great.
And it used to be the billboard on 81.
Also, all of the admission staff has interacted with the Career Center folks to hear the same information and presentation so that they can incorporate that when they are at their recruitment fairs, doing presentations in the high schools, all of that is incorporated again in terms of why you would want to come to JMU.
Great.
In the College of Business, at their last orientation sessions, that's usually at near the end of the summer, or sometime in the middle of the summer, I guess. We have a slide that says, what should you be doing academically and what should you be doing professionally? And they go back and forth. And so, you know, one of the things is clean up your social media. That's pretty obvious. But it talks about when you should start looking for internship opportunities and where you should go to find those. So we're kind of trying to hit them over the head with it as much as possible.
Great. Abby.
Yeah, I worked as a summer tour guide this year, and that's one of the things that the admissions counselors really heavily emphasize that we should emphasize on our tours is the fact that the Career Center is doing so much for the students here. So that was always a big hit on my tours. We got to the Student Success Center and I was like, and we have this really amazing office here at JMU called the Career Center. They have all the career fairs, they have the career closet, they help with everything you could possibly need. Just from my experience, they've helped with everything I could possibly need. It's terrifying to go into those career fairs, but they offer a ton of help and they do a really good job at marketing the help that they give. It's sent out in emails. I'll get like maybe an email a week from them, which is just the right amount. It's in all the potty mouths in the restrooms, highlighting everything that they're doing. So just from a student perspective and a former tour guide perspective, they're doing a lot to market it.
I want to come back to John's comments, but also back to the report from our governance chair. Because as Jack indicated, his current thinking is that the offsite in April will be oriented around giving every trustee the elevator pitch of the JMU value proposition. And I think it's just critically important because it's of course important that we know everything behind the data. But sometimes we can bury the lead with too much data. And there are a couple, I mean, we're all guilty of that. And I think if this board of visitors, along with the administration, can come together around what are the 4, 5, 6 key points that we make every time about JMU. What is the elevator pitch? What is the overall umbrella statement that distinguishes us every time in every presentation? It will just multiply the awareness of this differentiated institution and amplify our voice. So I would just, we'll all help you plan a great offsite because I think it's really important that we walk out not with, and thank you for the 25 pages or the 30 pages. It's incredibly important to give us confidence and data and support, but I think it's critically important we walk out with 1 page that we all speak from all the time.
Yeah, just a couple additional comments. Some are probably repetitive. First of all, I think the numbers are staggering.
Yes, they are.
They are staggering. And I think could become kind of the theme of our school in a bunch of respects. As much as I was happy that we beat UVA last weekend, and we all know of other distinguishing factors of JMU, this may be our number 1. That's the most, quantitative and comprehensive. 2 things struck me completely. One, I think, Nicole, you said doubling down in Richmond. Terry, you said, how do we package that? I think it does need to be packaged. We need to go to delegates and state senators and say, hey, you got to support us more. We're getting jobs for people in Virginia. And we're a big school. We're a Virginia school when people get their first jobs. We really are. The other thing that struck me was the list of employers. If I was using what we have now, I would make a list as a marketing plan of the largest employers in Virginia, highest revenues in Virginia, and get employers. And I would take this to every single big employer in Virginia. And I know a lot of people are working remotely these days, but every one of the big companies care about their local community and they care about Virginia. And I would try to make the pitch to them. You want to be added to this list. Look at Centera, look at KPMG. There's a bunch of Virginia companies that aren't on that list. And our goal should be to add those companies each year.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to make one final comment. I do want to highlight that yesterday in his report, Dean Colbert very happily reported that his college had the #1 highest starting salary above, for possibly one of the first times, the College of Business.
Well, they had the response rate maybe that
All right. Thank you very much. This was incredible for us to close out our open session of the meeting. So thank you very much. Thank you for all you do for the university and for the students. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Okay, with that, I think we are ready to move into closed session. So Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move we go into closed session to discuss personnel matters involving promotions, performance, retirements, hiring, resignations, salary adjustments, and status changes of faculty members, university administrators, and appointees. And 2, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia, to consult with legal counsel regarding legal advice by counsel.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, we're going to take a brief 5-minute recess. To allow us to prepare for the session.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell.
You know. Sure, I concur. Okay. Okay, so during the closed session, the board discussed only matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only those types of matters identified in the motion for the closed session. I'll need to go around the room and ask everyone to individually agree. Rob?
I agree.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we only have one motion coming forward.
Madam Rector, I move the board approve the personnel action report as amended.
You. I believe we've had all the discussion, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the motion has passed. Thank you. All right, before we conclude, I just have a couple of comments. And it's always one of those things where I wish there were more people in the room, but you guys will have heard it. The 2022-23 academic year has concluded being built upon the momentum of JMU's transition to R2 and FBS. JMU has experienced another outstanding year. There are a couple of critical things to point out. We've received $34 million, which is hugely notable as a first year R2 school. We've been noted as having one of the most seamless transitions to FBS with success in men's football, women's basketball, and volleyball. And most importantly, our athletes winning all 3 major academic awards at the Sun Belt. We received a 17% increase in applications and 68% over the last 2 years when so many other schools are struggling. We celebrated our successful capital campaign, having raised over $250 million, with 2 of our more significant donations coming in to cap off the campaign. And we had a stellar performance on the SAC COC accreditation with back-to-back 0 recommendations. And that's just to name a few. Under the leadership of President Alger, JMU continues to be positioned to compete within a national and a global framework never before seen by this community. JMU is lucky to have him leading the university, and the board supports the president and appreciates how hard he has worked in the support of JMU's success. So with that, I look forward to a very exciting academic year working with all of you. Welcome again to our new board members. And if there is no further business.
That's real quick. Here on the table, are several different kinds of publications for you to take for any that you might be interested in. But one highlight is in the Virginia Living, 2 things about JMU. One is about our Reddix Center for First Generation Students, great article. And second, an ad, which talks about our outcomes.
Oh, that's nice.
To promote. So, you know, pick up, there's one up there for everybody to take along some.
I love that.
Take anything that you.
I love that headline, return on experience. That's
Got it.
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Well done.
We are trying hard to no longer being the hidden gem. All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your time and attention, and I appreciate all your voices around the table.
Thanks, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
During the